Hey there, my friend. Today we're going to have a real conversation about pornography. In this video, you'll discover whether watching porn is actually harmful or not. What consequences does it bring? We'll talk about the negatives, the positives, what porn addiction really is, how to identify it in yourself, and how to fight it. So make sure you stick around until the end. Let's dive into the numbers first. The statistics tell us that roughly 95% of men have watched pornography, and about 83% of them continue to do so. So if you, my friend, fall into these percentages, go ahead and hit that like button while nobody's watching, and let's keep going. Why does porn cause addiction? Why do people enjoy watching it so much? First, there's something called the Coolidge effect. Basically, new things are more exciting than familiar ones. That's exactly why new sexual partners create more arousal. That's also why when you have the same partner for a while, the excitement tends to decrease over time. Pornography is essentially an artificial way to constantly get new stimulation. The problem with pornography is that there's an enormous amount of it available now. From the traffic statistics I've seen, probably only YouTube can compete with porn sites in terms of volume, but I think in the future that might even change, and the adult industry could surpass YouTube. So why do we always want to watch it? Why does it feel so good? The thing is, our bodies love getting pleasurable sensations. Why? Because in response to them, we get endorphins, hormones of pleasure, hormones of joy, hormones of achievement. The same hormones you might get when you beat someone in basketball or win a video game or accomplish something. It's the hormone that rewards you for certain actions. And what happens when you watch porn? You get those positive hormones. Sounds harmless enough, right? But in reality, this leads to habituation. And your brain, if you're abusing pornography, gets used to the fact that these positive, pleasant emotions, I'd even call it a drug, because the part of your brain responsible for the sensations you feel while watching porn is the same part that gets stimulated when people use drugs or alcohol or tobacco. So this really is porn addiction. While we used to think addiction to porn didn't exist, the American Society of Addiction Medicine has now officially recognized that porn addiction is a distinct disorder. There's even a specific form of erectile dysfunction called PIED, pornography-induced erectile dysfunction. It's real. Sometimes guys come into my practice and tell me that when they masturbate, everything works great. Strong erection from start to finish. No problems. They get aroused immediately to pornography. But when it comes to being with their wife or girlfriend, nothing works. This problem is actually very serious, and even though we started this video with some lighthearted comments, this is a genuinely serious issue. People who fall into porn addiction suffer tremendously. First thing you need to understand is how to know if you have a porn addiction. There's a simple questionnaire with 5 questions. If you answer yes to at least 2, you might want to suspect you have erectile dysfunction caused by porn viewing or porn addiction. First, do you have trouble masturbating without using porn? Meaning, can you reach orgasm, or perhaps you can't reach orgasm at all if you're not masturbating to porn? That's the first one. Second, do you have problems achieving an adequate erection during sex? That's the second question. Third, do you have no problems masturbating while watching porn? Fourth, does watching porn take up 30 minutes or more of your day? And fifth, can you not have sex without simultaneously watching porn or without constantly imagining scenes or images from pornography? If your answer is yes to 2 out of 5 questions, that's a reason to think about it. You might already have a problem, or one might be forming. Why is it important to identify this issue? The thing is, when you start associating pleasure not with a living sexual partner, but with pixels, with a screen, when you start getting pleasure from watching something non-living and you start substituting one for the other, you end up with huge problems during natural, real physical contact. That's the first thing. The second point is that there's a concept called escapism, from the word escape, to avoid, to run away. If you watch porn or masturbate sometimes because you have sexual arousal and want to reach orgasm, that's understandable. But porn addiction is often an escape from reality. People try to use the endorphins released during porn viewing and masturbation as drugs, as a way to numb pain, as a way to escape depression. That's why very often masturbation and porn addiction in people is induced by some problems in life. So what should people with porn addiction do? Well, first, you need to acknowledge it. If you don't recognize this problem, if you think it's normal, everyone does it. Maybe everyone does. But in what volume? That's the question I often get asked during appointments when people come with this problem. How long does it take to get rid of porn addiction? And how do you do it? Everything really depends on what you're dealing with. It depends on factors like the intensity of your porn viewing, your experience, so to speak. If this has been going on for 15 years, naturally you'll be coming out of this state longer compared to someone who's only been at it for a year. Third is the duration of porn viewing per session. The more severe all of this is, the harder it is to get out. So how do you get out? Getting out is actually simple on one hand, but difficult on the other. And why should you do it? The thing is, when you constantly get endorphins in this format, you start destroying your reward system. You start getting less pleasure from everyday things that used to bring you joy. You start getting fewer releases of oxytocin. That's what you feel when you're with a partner you feel good with. That feeling of tenderness and affection, that's all oxytocin. The release of oxytocin starts to suffer too, and problems with serotonin begin as well. The deeper you go into this problem, the more hormones get involved. Then prolactin also starts rising more intensively after orgasm compared to those who don't regularly and frequently masturbate. This is a serious problem. That's why people in porn addiction are less successful, less productive, less focused, and more mentally unstable. And the question isn't whether porn is good or bad, or whether it's some kind of taboo. I have a completely normal attitude toward it. It's your right, your choice. The question is how harmful it is for your endocrine system and your psyche, because your entire life suffers. Let's be honest here, man to man, because 98% of my subscribers are guys. Honestly, write in the comments why you watch porn. Is it really an escape from reality? Is it just chasing some pleasures and thrills, or is it actually about satisfying sexual needs? Please be honest and write it as it is, because now I'm going to talk about treatment, and the first stage of any treatment is acknowledging the problem. If you don't acknowledge the problem, treatment won't work. As for treatment, the first thing we mentioned, how long does it take? On average, if we're talking about recovery timelines, it's anywhere from 30 days to 90 days. Like any habit, you gradually ease out of it. You know how they say a habit forms in 3 weeks? Well, it works roughly the same way in reverse. The minimum time frame is usually 3-4 weeks, but sometimes it stretches to several months. Obviously, the fewer relapses and problems you have, the easier it'll be. There's a concept called flatline. Flatline is when the EKG turns into a straight line. That's what doctors call it. The same thing happens with your hormones. When you quit watching porn and you need to completely eliminate it for at least a month, you'll notice that at first you'll start experiencing withdrawal symptoms, basically like going through withdrawal. And what does that look like? Depressive states, lack of satisfaction from life, bad mood, you'll become grumpy, and paradoxically, remember this, you'll want sex even less, even though it seems like if you stop masturbating, if you stop watching porn, then the opposite should happen. You should want sex more. But actually, no. In reality, you'll have a major crash that you'll need to push through, and it's not easy. There are even special communities where people with similar problems connect and support each other. And ways to not relapse include being around people more, engaging in activities that used to, or even now to a lesser extent, help you produce endorphins. Getting that hormone of achievement, that hormone of pleasure, that hormone of success. play sports, go to the gym, start a new hobby you've never done before. For example, take up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or CrossFit. It's like quitting drugs. Stage one is preparation. For that, you need rooms you can't leave, calming down, and through this, restoring that reward system. It's very important to completely eliminate porn viewing from your life, and preferably for a certain period of time, masturbation too. And if you do bring masturbation back, by the way, we'll definitely make a separate episode about abstinence, the so-called sperm retention. And if you're interested in the topic of abstaining from sex, its benefits and drawbacks, then definitely subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and you'll be the first to know when that episode comes out. The most important thing is to not turn porn viewing into a painkiller, like many unfortunately do. And besides just getting rid of this for a month pushing through, let's actually think about why you're doing this. Why do you need it every day? Once, twice, 3 times? What's the cause of the pain that makes you turn to the easy path of getting pleasure more and more often? Because we can eliminate the effect, but without working through the cause, your problems won't go anywhere. So if you're lonely, unhappy, have some problems in your personal life, you absolutely need to deal with that. You need to solve it. Because there's research. I'll definitely leave links to it in the description under this video. Let me tell you about some of the effects in general if we set aside porn addiction, just what porn statistically affects. First fact I wanted to share about pornography. In couples where a partner watches porn and masturbates, there are more arguments. Second fact, in couples where a partner watches more porn and masturbates more, there are more divorces. Third interesting fact, the amount of porn watched, regardless of its type, doesn't affect your partner's tendency to cheat. Meaning it's not like they watched too much porn, wanted something different, and therefore went out and cheated on you. So don't think that if your spouse watches porn, they want to cheat on you with some other person. That's not how it works. Regarding porn and body dysmorphia, statistics show that people, especially those who haven't had their sexual debut yet, meaning the start of their sex life, experience body dysmorphia about their genitals. It seems to them that their penis is small, that they themselves are somehow unattractive, because without having their own experience, they take that picture as the reference point, as the norm. And of course, when they start having sex, and many don't because of this, they're 25 years old and haven't had their sexual debut yet. They have this huge fear that something won't work out, that they'll be laughed at. So sexual contacts become either extremely rare or there's complete substitution, meaning replacing sexual contacts with pornography entirely. According to global statistics, women watch porn about half as often as men. I think that's roughly what you imagined. But here's an interesting fact. People who were surveyed in person, not anonymously, said they watch porn in about 50–60% of cases. This is men we're talking about. But when surveys were done online anonymously, that percentage jumped to 95–98%. About 50% of couples watch pornography together. And naturally, there's the fear that watching pornography increases divorce rates. Why am I telling you all this? Remember how we started? That there's more arguing, more problems, but is porn really the cause? Or maybe it's the other way around. Remember what we started with. Why do people turn to pornography? An attempt to escape something, an attempt to get some cheap pleasure, and they sleep with their partner, their wife, the mother of their children less and less. And they go toward pornography. Why? Maybe porn isn't the issue. Maybe the issue is the problems in the relationship. And therefore, relationships with more porn are simply unhealthy relationships in themselves, where there's more arguing, more fighting, not understanding each other, and the person escapes from those relationships, escapes into pornography. The research I'll definitely link in the description under this video. Please look at all these studies. They're certainly truthful, but any research needs to be evaluated soberly, understanding the structure, and understand that in reality, maybe all these problems aren't caused by pornography. They exist in bad, unhealthy relationships on their own, and maybe pornography itself isn't any cause at all. Porn, we've actually said so many negative things about it, but according to statistics, by age 12, about 93% of teenagers have already seen pornography. Around 87% of teenagers get their first visual experience through pornography. They understand how it's structured, how it works, especially in our country, where there's no such thing as comprehensive sex education. And everything we know about sex, we usually get not from conversations with parents. It's peers, it's pornography, it's certain magazines. So actually, for educational purposes, possibly even to reduce stress before the first sexual encounter, sometimes pornography does have positive effects, but unfortunately, attitudes toward it are quite radical, especially in more conservative faith communities. Everyone says pornography is bad, it's sinful. Well, actually, that's not quite right. The main thing is to understand that there's a line that shouldn't be crossed, because going into addiction, you're not just ruining your sex life, you're ruining absolutely everything. And I know tons of successful people, very famous people come to my practice, people you often see on TV, and it seems like surely they have no problems with their sex life. Surely everything's definitely fine with them. They're changing partners every day. No. Yet they're wildly addicted to porn. They have problems in their personal life. They have severe problems of a psychological nature. They're not satisfied with life. Nothing makes them happy. All their success, money, fans, it doesn't bring pleasure. So please take this problem seriously, but sensibly. Thanks for watching this video to the end. In the next episode, we'll definitely talk about caffeine and coffee. Thanks for watching to the end. I appreciate you all, sending you a big hug, and see you soon.